Wait until you hear this, because a random public encounter with Kody and Robyn just sparked one of the strangest fan stories yet. And trust me, the detail everyone is talking about will completely surprise you. So stay with me until the end, because this story gets wilder as it unfolds. And if you enjoy shocking reality TV deep dives like this, make sure you hit subscribe right now, because you do not want to miss what we uncover next. Hey besties, welcome back to the channel, and today I honestly was not planning to talk about anything related to Sister Wives, but something happened that was simply too strange, too funny, and honestly too revealing not to share, because a story started circulating online that caught my attention immediately. And when I first read it, I actually had to read it twice just to make sure I understood what the person was claiming happened. And apparently, according to someone who posted in a fan group, Kody and Robyn Brown were recently spotted out in public, and not just anywhere, but at a mall, which already sounds exactly like the type of place you might expect them to be, because Robyn has always seemed like someone who enjoys that kind of environment: the shopping, the attention, the casual run-ins with fans. And according to the post, a fan approached them politely and asked if they could take a picture. And the interaction itself sounded surprisingly normal at first. But then, the person sharing the story added a detail that instantly made people stop and laugh and question everything. Because according to the sister who met them, Robyn apparently smelled like onions. And yes, you heard that correctly, onions. And the person even tried to politely rationalize it by suggesting maybe she had been cooking earlier. But the strange part is that they were at a mall, so immediately people started wondering how exactly someone ends up smelling like onions while walking around a shopping center. Because unless you just left a restaurant or were chopping onions right before leaving the house, it seems like a pretty unusual detail. And of course, the internet being the internet, the comment section immediately started filling with jokes, theories, and speculation about what could possibly explain the mysterious onion smell. While the person who wrote the post also mentioned that Robyn did not seem especially friendly during the interaction, which again is just one person's opinion, but it added another layer to the story, because the fan also said that Kody, on the other hand, talked constantly and seemed very eager to engage, which actually lines up with how many viewers have perceived him on television, as someone who often enjoys being the center of attention and speaking at length whenever he has an audience. But even that part of the story sparked debate, because some fans said that meeting someone briefly in public is very different from seeing their behavior over many years on a reality television show, where viewers feel like they have watched the family dynamics unfold in real time. And that is where the conversation took an even more interesting turn, because the moment people started discussing the encounter, they also began reflecting on the long, complicated history of the Brown family and the way the relationships have evolved over time, especially the tensions, conflicts, and emotional struggles that viewers have watched play out across multiple seasons. And suddenly, the onion comment became almost symbolic in the way people interpreted it, because some viewers joked that it represented the layers of complicated feelings surrounding the family, while others simply treated it as a humorous moment that reminded them how surreal it can be when reality television personalities appear in ordinary places like a mall, where fans unexpectedly cross paths with them. And yet, even while people were laughing about the story, another conversation was happening at the same time, because around the same period, Janelle Brown had also been sharing updates about a major change happening in her life. And those updates sparked their own discussion among viewers who have followed her journey for years, especially after everything that happened within the family structure and the challenges that came with leaving a long, complicated relationship and starting over. And according to what she shared, Janelle has recently moved into a newly completed home and described the experience as a personal milestone, explaining that designing and building the space involved making decisions independently, which for her represented a powerful shift after years of living within a system where decisions were often made collectively. And that reflection opened the door to a much larger conversation about independence, personal growth, and what it means to rediscover rediscover your own voice later in life, because she talked about the realization that at a certain point, you no longer need permission to create the life you want. And for many viewers, that message resonated deeply, especially those who have experienced major transitions, divorce, or the challenge of redefining themselves after decades of living according to expectations that may no longer fit who they are becoming. And yet, at the same time, her new project, which involves offering coaching and guidance to other women navigating similar life changes, also raised questions among some observers who wondered whether life coaching is the right path, considering that it is an unregulated field where anyone can offer advice without formal licensing. And that debate reflects a broader discussion happening across social media, where people often share personal experiences in hopes of helping others, while audiences sometimes struggle to decide where the line exists between sharing encouragement and presenting oneself as an expert. And as viewers talked about Janelle's story, they also reflected on how complicated healing and personal development can be, especially after years spent within a highly structured belief system or family dynamic, because stepping into independence often requires unlearning patterns, rebuilding confidence, and learning to trust your own decisions again, which is a process that takes time, patience, and support from trusted professionals, friends, and family. And the interesting thing is that these two seemingly unrelated stories, the humorous mall encounter and the deeper conversation about rebuilding life after major change, ended up blending together in a way that kept people talking. Because both situations highlight how public figures from reality television continue to spark curiosity long after the cameras stop rolling, and how the audience that followed their story for so many years still feels invested in what happens next. And that curiosity creates a strange dynamic where everyday moments like walking through a mall or posting about a new house can quickly turn into viral discussions filled with speculation, humor, and reflection. And as the conversation kept unfolding, more people began sharing their own thoughts about personal growth, relationships, and the idea that life does not follow a single predictable timeline, which is why the story kept gaining momentum, because beneath the jokes and commentary, there was also a deeper reminder that everyone, whether they are on television or not, eventually faces the challenge of redefining themselves when circumstances change. And sometimes those moments appear in the most unexpected ways, whether it is through a fan encounter that sparks laughter across the internet or through a quiet personal. As the discussion continued, another layer of reflection began to emerge, because whenever people talk about the Brown family, they are not only talking about individual moments or viral stories, but also about a much larger narrative that has unfolded over many years on television, where viewers witness the complicated reality of plural marriage, emotional conflict, and the personal journeys of each woman who was part of that family structure. And what makes the current situation especially fascinating is that each person seems to be navigating a completely different path now, which creates a sense of suspense about how their lives will continue to evolve moving forward. Because for a long time, the public narrative revolved around maintaining the idea of unity within the family, even when viewers could clearly sense tension beneath the surface. And that contrast between what was shown and what was later revealed has led many people to look back at earlier seasons with a different perspective, wondering how much of the story was shaped by the pressure of being on television and how much reflected the true emotions and struggles that were happening behind the scenes. And when fans read about small moments like the mall encounter, they often interpret them through the lens of everything they have already seen, which is why even a humorous detail like the mysterious onion smell quickly becomes part of a larger conversation about personality, behavior, and perception, because viewers have spent years forming opinions about each member of the family, and those opinions influence how they react to every new piece of information, whether it is a serious update about someone rebuilding their life or a lighthearted story about an unexpected meeting in public. And at the same time, the discussion about Janelle's personal transformation continues to grow because many people recognize how difficult it can be to redefine your identity after decades spent within a system that required constant compromise and collective decision-making. And when someone reaches their 50s and begins exploring independence in a completely new way, it naturally raises questions about what empowerment really looks like and how people rebuild confidence after leaving situations that shaped their worldview for so long. And this is where the conversation becomes more complex, because some observers feel inspired by her willingness to start over, while others remain cautious about the idea of turning that journey into a coaching program for others. And both perspectives exist simultaneously within the audience, creating an ongoing debate about authenticity, responsibility, and the difference between sharing personal growth and offering professional guidance. And interestingly, this debate mirrors a broader cultural shift happening online, where more individuals are openly discussing their life experiences in hopes of helping others navigate similar challenges. And while those conversations can be empowering, they also highlight the importance of recognizing the difference between personal storytelling and professional advice, especially when topics involve emotional healing, relationships, and major life transitions. And as the story continues to unfold, viewers find themselves reflecting not only on the Brown family, but also on their own experiences. Because the themes that appear in this narrative, independence, self-discovery, trust rebuilding, and learning to listen to your own instincts, are challenges that many people face at different points in life, regardless of whether they have ever watched a reality show. And perhaps that is the real reason these conversations remain so engaging, because beneath the headlines and dramatic moments, there is a relatable human element that keeps audiences curious about what will happen next and how each person involved will continue growing beyond the roles they once played on television. And that sense of curiosity creates a kind of narrative loop where every new update leads back to the same central question. What does life look like after the cameras fade and the expectations that once defined your identity begin to shift? And for the Brown family, that question seems to grow more intriguing with each passing year, because the public is witnessing a rare situation where multiple individuals who once shared a single story are now writing entirely separate chapters, each one filled with uncertainty, possibility, and the challenge of building a future that reflects who they are today rather than who they were when the show first began. And as fans continue following these developments, they often find themselves caught between amusement and reflection, laughing at the unexpected details like the onion mystery, while also thinking more deeply about the lessons hidden within the larger story about relationships, resilience, and personal change. And that blend of humor, curiosity, and introspection is exactly what keeps viewers engaged, because even after so many seasons, the Brown family narrative still feels unfinished, leaving people wondering which direction the next chapter will take, and whether the individuals involved will ultimately find the balance, independence, and peace they have been searching for all along. So that is the strange story that has everyone talking right now. And honestly, it raises even more questions about what is really happening behind the scenes. So if you enjoyed this deep dive and want more shocking updates and reality TV stories like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel right now, because the next story might be even more unbelievable.